everyone. Welcome to the Footy Interchange. Great to have your company again. Adam Papalia with you alongside Will Schofield. It's the show where we crisscross the footy highway. We get across the footy interstate and jump all around the country, checking in with people on the ground in their home states to give us the lowdown on what people are actually talking about in their hometowns as well, about all the teams right around the league. Very excited to get into it. There's so many issues to discuss again today as I welcome in my co-host in Will Schofield, who's just been swanning around town, walking around, just flipping the bird to people left, right and centre, and he joins me right now. Hello, Scoey.
Hi, Paps. Oh, mate, it's Derby week. I feel like we're going to lean into this West Coast Freo versus the world because God knows they're not versus the rest of the AFL at the moment. It's 17th and 18th. We will speak to Eliza, Reilly about that a little bit later on in the show. Yes, mate, it's been, look, we expected West Coast to be where they are. Well, at least I did. Yep. So there's no shock there. It's just the duplicate of West Coast and Fremantle here in the West. Yeah, just got me a tiny bit flat, but I'll get myself up for you.
I don't know how often it's happened in the past that it's 17th and 18th going into a derby. So we're trying to get excited about it. The strange look at it is there's so much on the line in this one. Like sometimes, they're middle of the table and you think, pump it up and it's a derby and it means a lot, as it always does to fans. But it actually means a lot this week because neither of them have a win, and particularly for Fremantle, more so than West Coast. The Dockers, I don't even want to contemplate for them what it looks like if they don't win this weekend.
Mate, there's nothing on the line for West Coast, to be really honest, because their expectations coming into this year were, okay, we're gonna rebuild, we're gonna new coach, we're gonna give our guys some time to get better. And first game, disaster. Second game, really good. So inconsistent performance. That's about where we thought they'd be. So They have nothing on the line. But West Coast have nothing, which may be dangerous for Freo, or Freo could wipe them. I either think West Coast is, I know this is a way too early derby predicting. I either think West Coast beat Freo or Freo win by 10 goals. Bloodbath.
Well, they shocked Freo last year by getting the win in the first derby, and Harley Reid went nuts and is under pressure after the first couple of weeks with so much being spoken about him. And we'll talk more about the derby with Eliza. But Harley Reid, you spoke about it here on this show last week about how everyone's talking about him and why are we talking so much about a 19-year-old kid who's only in his second season. Can we give him a bit of a breather, I guess? It's gone to another level again this week. Gave away 7 free kicks on the weekend, pulled the finger at the crowd, which has brought that back into vogue because everyone's running around town doing it now. Where do you sit on it? Another week on. For me, again, no problem with the rude finger at the crowd. That happens. Just cop a fine, move on. We don't need to please explain or anything like that. For me, again, it's the staging for free kicks that he needs to get out of his game and just focus on playing footy rather than that other stuff.
Yeah. I think the talk is fine. I think he and the rest of us are going to have to accept he's going to be talked about.
Yeah.
Full stop.
You can't stop it, right?
No.
And we're doing it right here.
Exactly right. So that's what it's led off. My biggest problem is with the critique. Like, yes, number 1 draft pick. I still think he's in his rookie deal, so it's not like he's earning a $2 million contract. I know for a fact he's not on that. I don't know if it's increased or not, but the number 1 draft pick lends itself to discussion. But the critique around it is what I said last week. I mean, yeah, okay, he has 7 free kicks against, and is he, outside of just focusing on playing football? Yes, he is. But so is he meant to have learnt in 6 days? Is that where we're at?
No.
So nothing's changed from last week. In the criticism of him is alarming. Like, talk about it, but you can't go, well, clearly not professional enough, doesn't understand how to be an AFL player, and now he needs to get traded back to Victoria. He's 19 years old, and he's learning. Was he better this week than he was last week as a player?
Yep.
Played a better game.
Yep.
I hope internally that's what they're speaking about. I'm sure they are. I've heard a lot of chat about trying to get senior players around him as well. Pendlebury's name thrown out. So Nat Fyfe's name thrown out. Some of these, Luke Parker, darling top operation at North Melbourne. He's got Luke Shuey and Shannon Hearn off the field, who are the 2 of the best leaders I've been around in football. Both captains of West Coast. Shannon Hearn, the most consistent human being I've ever been around. So they've got the tools to teach him. And then it falls back on Harley, You've got to have some self-responsibility, personal responsibility about how you improve. But I'm not going to be criticising him. It's the way he plays. And, 7 free kicks. It's not how you're writing that up on the playbook. But I would have that over someone, drifting around not having a crack. It's like he's having a crack, he'll get better. If he plays better again this week, that means he's played 3 games in a row that's been better than the last. And if you continue that upward trajectory, then they start getting towards the player that they drafted.
I know we're feeding into it by discussing it here, but that's what we're here to do. The other bit that's come out, I reckon, of people making comment and talking about Harley Reid is the go-home factor about going back to Victoria and West Coast being a little bit too afraid to give him strong feedback. What's your knowledge, your thoughts on how you think it's being handled at the moment? Because if you're worried about a player leaving, as a club, do you not go as hard as potentially you would do for other players in terms of trying to put them on the straight and narrow if they need it?
Without knowing Harley, he's not my best mate, without knowing him that well, he looks like the sort of player that would like a bit of direct feedback. Don't know that. And to be honest, I don't know how many people in the media know that. No one's inside that. No one knows what feedback he's getting. I'd like to think you'd be getting some direct feedback. This is what you need to do. This is what not to do. Because he's young. And then you've got to work with him. I think as an industry, young players, we've started, moving away from that harsher, more direct feedback. And, in a good way, you're teaching and spending time and bit softer approach. But sometimes you can bring out the stick, right? The carrot or the stick. Sometimes you can bring out the stick. I don't know if that's there right now. I don't know, the go-home factor, all that sort of stuff, mate. I've always said the go-home factor is garbage. Like, you either, I think players like being in environments they can win games of footy. So whether are West Coast being harsh enough? I don't know, and no one else does.
Freo might be a little bit nervous about a potential big game from him.
I think he has a big one
this week, given he's played well in derbies last year and seems to embrace that type of moment. So we hope that we can see his best on the weekend and play that attacking brand of footy, because I think that type of footy is what we're seeing a little bit more of in the league right now. On the weekend, Adelaide Crows, they smashed the Bombers, kicking goals for fun. And some of the teams this year, you seem to be picking up a bit of a trend that the teams that want to attack the most are having the most success.
So this isn't if you score more than the other side, you win, and that's the trend I'm picking up. But you think if you just think to yourself, well, who are the best sides this year right now? And I think GWS, Hawthorn, and maybe Adelaide come into that conversation. They all have a gear to go to that is like all-out attack. And it's, I use it all the time, the bomb going off. Like as soon as that moment happens where they're on the attack, they're just as a team. Collingwood, I don't think have it quite humming like they did in their premiership year, but that Collingwood halfback run and gun, like everyone's running. I think the sides that do that the best this year, all out attack, will be the best. And I don't think that bodes well for sides basing their game off defence. Backs win premierships, I always say, and as we get closer to finals, those teams that can defend off turnover, can win games of footy, but Adelaide win a game 160 to 100. Like they gave up 100 points, which is not positive, but the adage almost goes, well, okay, you can score whatever you like. If we score 160, you're not going to win. I think more than ever, we're seeing sides that go, okay, we're going to defend that turnover, but once we're going all out. We're risking more. I think the best sides will risk more this year. And for me, I just don't think Freo have quite got that right over here in the West yet.
So Freo, other sides you're concerned about? It's the Saints?
Yeah, St Kilda.
Even though they won on the weekend?
Essendon, they couldn't defend, but they couldn't pull the trigger. But like North Melbourne look like they're improving. Gold Coast, from the one game we've seen, like these teams, their attack. You know how some years we've seen the defence like rule it, and it's, they just defend so well and they're so well set up behind the footy. I just think it's more attack this year that is going to get the games done.
Well, it's more entertaining for people to watch as well. So we want more of it. And we've had some high scoring rounds to start with. Last one before we start jumping around the country, I want to throw at you. 15 metres. How long is that? Do we know? Can we get the measuring tape out as to how far? Do we need a different unit of measurement?
This is a trick question.
Well, 15 metres is 15 metres. It's 7.89 scullies if you laid you. top to tail the whole way along.
What's this?
How do we figure this out?
About the lines in the grass is 10 metres.
Well,
is that a thing, or you just? I hear you say that all the time.
Depends who mows the lawn.
I was about to say, like, depends how big the lawnmower is,
and it depends on the ground you're at, how long it is. The general rule of thumb is, it's about 10 metres. Could we make it 15 so it's, you can tell a little bit easier as to what it actually is? For me, if it looks like it's 15 metres, just bloody pay it. Because we've seen some in the last 2 weeks, in the first 3 rounds of the season, that are clearly 15 metres, but because they're in the back half of the field, they're not being paid. If it's in the front half, we saw some kicks the other day being paid 8 and 9 metres because they were inside 50 and paid a mark.
I like the rule erring on the play-on side of things if it's consistent. Does your head in if some are paid and some aren't. Mark Redding's had a good suggestion. If we moved it to 20, I just think a 20-metre kick is more distinguishable than a 15-metre. It's either a short kick and it's play on, or it's clearly over. 20 metres is a kick.
You can tell a little bit more. I don't know. I just feel like
17 and a half.
It doesn't matter what the number is, really. It could be 35. Just make sure you get it right.
No, but the thing that we're frustrated about, mate, is the first 2 rounds, opening round and round 1, they were so hot on it.
But there's clearly been a directive to not pay it.
But then Thursday, Friday, and most of Saturday, it just went away. I've watched almost all the games this year. It just went away. And then suddenly Sunday it's back. That's the frustrating part. I think just go with it.
I reckon the difference is where it's on the field. If it's in the back half, it seems like it's red hot. If it's in the forward half and you're trying to hit up a teammate inside 50, they pay the mark.
Let me introduce you to being a backman in the AFL, right? They don't pay these Tiggy Touchwood free kicks up in the middle of the ground. Suddenly someone's thread of their jumper's getting pulled and it's holding the man. Welcome to life as a backman.
You would have been filthy about that one at Collingwood Bulldogs. Hawthorn, wasn't it?
Mate, I've never agreed with a free kick in my life.
Carlton Hawthorn, where it was on the goal line and Barris got pushed out the way.
Absolutely.
I called back a free kick for a defender.
That was good.
Should have been a goal. No. It
was good.
No.
That was brilliant.
No.
Brilliant umpire.
You've got to let that go through. Scully, let's get into it because we've got to jump around the country. We've got so many issues to get through. All the different teams will have it covered right here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange as we head now to Victoria because Drew Jones is with us, of course, from Fox Sports and from Goat Fantasy as well, talking all things happening over there. Drew, great to chat to you as we do each and every week, mate. And you've been down to the Cattery today.
Hello, Paps. Hello, Scully. Yeah, all eyes on Bailey Smith and Tom Stewart today. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to say I was able to watch them be put through their paces, that wasn't the case. So Bailey Smith, a late withdrawal with a calf injury last week after explosive debut in the hoops against Freo in round 1. So it looks like Thursday is going to be the big day for him and he's going to need to get to main training and do something. He trained yesterday, so came to the club on the Monday to get assessed by the docs, then goes through a session, which is slightly unusual. The fact that we didn't get to see him today isn't ideal, but he was at the club this morning. And then Tom Stewart ran at about 10 a.m. We weren't allowed in until about 11-ish, so we just missed Stewart, but they're not ruling him out of Saturday night, despite the fact that initially that knee injury didn't look too good against the Saints on Saturday night. So chance that we see Stewart, I'm calling it a 40-60, but we'll get a look at him on Thursday and Chris Scott will speak, and then Bailey Smith I'm giving 60-40 chance to take on the Lions in what's going to be a very wet Gabba. The conditions will be, you'll need your canoe come Saturday night.
How different is it week to week? A hot 1 week, heat policy, and now you got the canoe out. Is that normal, Drew, that they lock you out down there, or is this just a little bit different for the Cats after a loss on the weekend?
No, it's not unusual. The players don't all train at the same time, usually except for the main session. So, we often talk about the flexibility that the Geelong players have. And today was an example of that. So players training at different times. So we didn't see guys like Dangerfield and Jeremy Cameron, like they did their sessions earlier in the day. And then some of the younger players were sort of later on. It's all sort of mixed around. So it's not totally unusual, but I think we all know the Cats play the cards, pretty close to the chest when it comes to selection and injuries and whatnot.
Yep, they would have been absolutely filthy that Mitch Cleary broke, that they couldn't
Oh,
make the
wouldn't
late
they?
change. So I've held Bailey Smith in my fantasy team, so you give me a 60% chance that that's the right call.
We're going to talk about that shortly, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Max Gawn feels like a story out of the weekend that is a bit of a strange one. He spoke about on radio today. What's the update?
Yeah, so he does that normal slot with Triple M. So he just clarified today there's no issue with him and Simon Goodwin. They've discussed the fact that it wasn't a planned thing that Simon Goodwin was going to go into the press conference and sort of reveal that Max was going through something quite personal. So I spoke to the club yesterday about it, and they didn't want to give any more detail. As you can understand, it's sort of Max's decision if he wants to talk about exactly what's going on. But there's an illness in the family, which is now he and the Gawn family have been dealing with for around 2 years. And it had just escalated a little bit in the last few weeks. So he would have been going into round one against the Giants under some pretty serious duress. And I think it didn't necessarily affect his performance so much in round one, but then it just came to a head against Tristan Sherry. And probably in hindsight, Simon Goodwin would have just chalked it up to an off day for Max and said, well played, Tristan. He got the better of us, and North got the better of us as a whole today. But the fact that he sort of revealed a bit more, you can understand there's a lot of love there. He wants to defend his player, but it just sort of came as a bit of a surprise to some at the club. So I'm sure probably on Thursday, Simon Goodwin will sort of say, wish I hadn't have done it. But no issue between him and the player. And I guess we just have to give Max his privacy as he deals with a tough situation in his family.
Yeah, certainly. Just sort of put it on the table, didn't it, when it didn't need to be for Max's sake. Hopefully they can get through what they're going through. And as you said, I'm sure Simon Goodwin will mention it. But they've got some issues, don't they? The Ds, there was a lot of hope, I guess, going into the season that they might be able to get back to some of the form that we've seen from them all the way back to 2021. But, with the start and the loss, particularly to North Melbourne on the weekend, a lot of their supporters will be feeling it right now.
Yeah, so I think they played well round one, and they made the most of tricky conditions at the MCG against the Giants, who were coming off a pretty taxing game in opening round. And I think there should be a lot of optimism about their young players, but we just saw more of those issues that we've seen in the last couple of years against North Melbourne. They sort of resurfaced at Marvel on Sunday, a lot of inside 50s without a lot of potency in the forward line. And then the most alarming thing, I think, for everyone watching the game was just the ease at which North Melbourne started walking the ball out of the centre, which, when you've got Oliver, Petrarca, Viney, Gawn, those sort of names, you just don't expect to see that. And I think they got their combos wrong at the start of the fourth quarter. Oliver was on the bench, Petrarca was forward, but it was happening way before that. The way that North Melbourne were dominating the midfield battle was certainly, that would be alarming to Simon Goodwin, because you'd think, that's their one wood, right? That's where they build their game from. So, yeah, Gold Coast at the MCG this week. The Suns have shown they've got no issue travelling, or certainly not so far this year. So it's going to be a really interesting one for the Ds.
It's, talking about North Melbourne, though, that's their one wood. We saw them over here in Bunbury. We were really impressed, weren't we? Perhaps they butchered it in front of goal, but their midfield was outstanding. So maybe North Melbourne are back. Certainly there's a few supporters over here in the West that think that Hamish Brayshaw leading the charge in that regard.
I just think that's the game we're going to look back on and say that's where it clicked for North. That's where they got their confidence. I reckon they're going to be really hard to beat at Marvel Stadium this year. I think that's the blueprint for them. And then I was just having a look through it. I'll just give you some names at why I think they can win more games this year. I tipped them to beat the Bulldogs in round one. They let me down, but they were certainly good last week. But Jai Simpkin has had an injury-riddled few years, concussions, all sorts. I think he looks like he's back to his best. That's massive for them, the skipper. Then Tom Powell, finally been given a full-time midfield role. He looks fantastic. 31 disposals on the weekend, a goal. Paul Curtis, 22 disposals, 3 goals on the weekend. Maybe he's starting to scratch the surface. And then other names like Charlie Comben down back has been threatening to do it for a while, but all of a sudden he looked like Harris Andrews. And then Robert Hansen Jr., Jacob Costanti, Bailey Scott. When those C graders become Bs, when the Bs become As, that's where you get that incredible growth within your team. So North Melbourne may be one to watch, and that might be the game where it all started to click.
Yep, so many high draft picks on the way through, and eventually it's got to click at some point. Maybe it is starting, and we'll see North Melbourne rise a touch. Western Bulldogs, Drew, they're pretty unlucky in that clash with Collingwood. A lot of the fans not happy with the free kick count in that one. But what about the Doggies? Have had plenty of injuries, and of course, Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Any update there?
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on Jamara. So there's been a lot of talk about that, the fact that he went to the NBL and then the NRL, but then didn't go to the Bulldogs' 100-year anniversary. I just think that's an accurate reflection of where things are at between he and the football club right now. And to me, it's not a repairable situation. And whether or not Luke Beveridge is able to shed any light on that later in the week, I think is important. The Bulldogs are sick of talking about this. Like, they do not want to comment on Jamara. And it's a really tough situation for everyone at the club right now. But I would suspect that everyone within the organisation would feel incredibly let down by the fact that Jamara couldn't be there on Friday night, and then chose to post on his social media that he was elsewhere. So to me, this situation is not fixable. He won't see out his contract at the Bulldogs. It's just a question of, can he get his life back in order? Can he, become healthy and happy and do what he wants to do? But also, is he, he's most likely going to be at another footy club? So, the questions will keep coming, and we're going to keep talking about it. But I think that's a really telling situation. And Scully, just wanted to get your thoughts from a former player perspective on the fact that he couldn't be there for his club on such a big night.
Yeah, it's less about that. I heard these rumours in the off-season that he wouldn't play for the Bulldogs again. I'm sure you did as well, Drew. And, without more detail, it's hard to comment on them. But as a player, it was always important for me that everyone was invested. I mean, there's no other industry like it in terms of the AFL. You're all just reaching towards this goal of winning a premiership. And if people aren't on the boat with you, well, you leave them behind. It's not, in the footy club, like you said, they'll just be sick of talking about it. They'll be putting all the resources and help behind him on the personal level, but they're preparing for a game this weekend. And as simple as that sounds, they'll just be like, well, if you're not in with us, you're out. And until you can do something to demonstrate you're in, they haven't wiped their hands with him, I'm sure, but they've got other things to focus on. They're there to win games of footy. So that's what I think about it. Can we finish on some fantasy stuff, mate? Because like I said, I held Bailey Smith. I got a few issues, got to be honest.
We all do.
Yeah. Talk to me about some updates in that regard.
Okay, so a few thousand people traded out Bailey Smith last weekend. If you went to someone other than Isaac Rankin, it probably worked really well in your favour. But I think he's a hold no matter what happens this week because of the best 18 setup. Bailey Smith is a must-have when he's fit and on the park. If he doesn't play this week, he's going to return the week after. So keep your eyes on Goat Fantasy. Keep your eyes on social media. Does he train on Thursday? I reckon if he trains Thursday, he ends up on the plane and he'll be involved in the game at the Gabba on Saturday night. But even if he isn't, there's way more stuff we can fix up in our team. We don't need to worry about getting Bailey Smith. We can cover him for a week with Sam Davidson or Connor Stone or whoever it is you've got on your bench. Maintain the faith in Baz, because when he comes back out and starts punching out tons and he only cost you 560 grand or whatever it was, you're going to want him in your side. So that calf injury doesn't look too serious, so he's not too far away. So I think we can happily hold and then enjoy the points rolling in when he's back.
I've got big premium issues. I've got Will Day, Andrew Brayshaw. My goodness gracious.
Okay. Can I weigh in on Will Day?
Yes.
So he'll get tagged by Toby Bedford this week. And then he has the bye the week after. So
get him out.
He's going to get you conservatively 60 points in the next 2 weeks, right?
The problem with Will Day is he is such a good player. I love watching him play. He's one of Hawthorn's most important players. He just ain't that fantasy guy that I got sucked into.
So I'm going to go Mitch Nevitt this week and take a little price bump, hoping that he lays 10, 12 tackles in the sopping wet in his wetsuit at the Gabba on Saturday night. Because Will Day's not going to get you any points this week that's going to count because Bedford's going to clamp him, and then he gets you nothing next week. Yeah. So find a way off Will Day if you can, and Mitch Nevitt is just sitting there if you've missed him. In terms of going up, Finn Callahan is back this week. He's still well priced, and he's going to average potentially a ton this year. So just a couple of options for you. But I think as much as we love Will Day, I'm heavily invested in him. I've got him in my draft team. I just don't think this week is his week. So in salary cap formats, he's got to go.
These random buys that have been coming through have been hurting me, trying to, if you've stacked up on one team or the other, makes it tough. Drew, before we let you go, what's the best disguise you use down there in Geelong just to try and spy on training? What do you usually roll with?
And what are you going to wear Thursday?
You dressed up as a big goat?
So Mitch Cleary seems to get all the stories. So if I just put on a pair of glasses and then just, he usually goes the top button undone, with a bit of hair coming out the top. Maybe that's with a 7 badge. I need a 7 badge. And I think that's probably the play.
Drew, you do realise Mitch is a Geelong man, and I don't know, you might be looking. Do you want me to put Mum on the case? I can get Mum down there if you want.
If I can get some Schofield scoops from the wider family, you're not coming to the table with anything for me, so perhaps Mama Sco can.
All right, I'll go speak to Jan.
Done. Thanks, Drew. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Jan.
Drew Jones there. Just getting some insider tips now from down there in Geelong.
She'll sort it out.
I always find it funny with some of the closed training sessions. It's different at the Cattery because it's a shut stadium, right? Yes. But some of them, particularly here in the West, they close the session, but they still let the fans watch, or it's an open public thing, and it's just you do the right thing.
Closed training sessions are the stupidest things of all time. You guys can't say that. It is so dumb. What do you think? What's going to happen? Somebody's going to steal the game plan.
I just don't know.
Everyone knows the game plan. You play on TV every week.
People haven't just got some supporters to go down there and just stand there with a scarf on.
Oh, they do. But why don't you just open every session? Nothing's going to happen.
And trade secrets and late changes and all that. All the fun and games there is around closed training sessions. You're on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, where we head to sunny Queensland. Do we call it now? What is it? What's the moniker? Is it sunny one day, beautiful one day, sunny the next, something like that? Or it's going to be bucketing down with rain or cyclones, or we don't know. Tommy Rockliff is for us there, of course, from Rockliff Finance up there, 200 gamer in the AFL. Tommy, great to chat to you, mate. Can you give us an update? What you post-cyclone, you've had a heat wave. What's going on now?
Yeah, well, we've got rain. Rain's arrived again. So I think this weekend we're going to have 80-odd mils on Friday, 70 mils on Saturday. So she may be a wet weather game again against Geelong. So they postponed, obviously, because of the cyclone. And then we've seen the crazy scenario on the weekend where we had the 12 o'clock first bounce. Humidity was 70, 80%, and at ground level that Alistair Lynch was down there. He reckons it was about 90%. He was sunburnt and sweating, 28 degrees. So not the smartest move from the AFL on that front. I'm sure there'll be just recovery all week for West Coast who made the long trip over. So they may be a bit tired going into that one, but certainly the Lions, 6-day turnaround against Geelong on their home deck, all about recovery this week for them. But yeah, we'll probably get a wet weather game over here.
Did you see Chris Fagan's comments on it? Because I found them interesting. I saw some guys reporting that both CEOs had talked about moving the game. We spoke to Liam Duggan yesterday on BackChat, who said it's the hottest game he's ever been involved in. Not whinging about it, of course, but it seemed bizarre. Chris Fagan said he's never played in a game at that time of the day, ever. And he's been in footy for 30 years.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have probably seen it. I mean, it's because daylight savings hasn't kicked in here yet. Well, we don't have daylight savings, so the clocks haven't been wound forward or back in Victoria. I don't even know what happens with daylight savings, but the midday bounce down is probably the first time I've seen it in my time as well. 10 o'clock over in WA for you guys. So over the bacon and eggs watching your team play. It was quite a bizarre scenario, but again, the AFL ticked it off as they always do. They've never made a mistake, the AFL, and said, no, it was all good to go, cherry ripe. So I think we'll see moving forward. It's a simple fix, just started at 4 o'clock. I know that you've got West Coast over here, or if you want to play it earlier, play at 4 o'clock on Saturday, give West Coast an opportunity to fly home and have a longer break.
Yeah, should there be a rule like that in place? It should be no day games in Queensland till the end of April or something like that?
I think so. I mean, you were talking March. March is, generally speaking, pretty hot around here. It's going to be hot. There's storms about, and that's what happened. It was 23 degrees at 4:30 in the morning, and then the rain came, and then the humidity kicks in. Once it cleared, the sun came out, and it's just the perfect recipe for disaster. And we've seen so many players cramp, and you'd hate to lose one of your stars with an injury this week potentially, because the risk of injury now increases for all those players that played on the weekend. Their ability to recover and rehydrate after a heat like that.
So on the top of the ladder, we've got Hawthorn with 3 wins, and Gold Coast are on 1 win. They've played 1 game. I mean, how ridiculous again. AFL never made a mistake. Are Gold Coast, are they primed or are they rusty? Like, do they need to get back on the park?
Well, I think they're primed. I would like to hope they are. This is a massive game for them and an opportunity for them. We've seen what they were able to do. You would have seen it live. You two guys over there, round 1, they were impressive against the West Coast Eagles, but they get an opportunity to go on the road again against a very gettable Melbourne after the weekend. There's no doubt they'll be fired up. But if the Gold Coast want to play finals, they've got ambitions to play finals. This is a scalp for them. This is an opportunity for them to make a statement this season. We know that they don't have a lot of games at Metricon in the first half of the year, with 2 games in Darwin. So this sets up as probably could be a season defining. I know it's stupid round 3, but it's a season defining potential win for them, because we know they've had issues on the road. They go 2-0, 2 road wins, sets up their season. So I'm looking forward to this contest. I think it's probably match of the round. I think Simon Goodwin's under a fair bit of under the pump with the list he's had over the years. I feel like they've probably underachieved, haven't played finals as much as they could have over that period. And I think the Gold Coast are cherry ripe to knock them off.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive clash for them to win on the road if they can. Sets them right up, as you said, Tom. Big news today coming through from the Queensland government that it's going to happen. They're going to build a new stadium for the Olympics, 60,000-seat stadium, which means that footy and cricket are going to move there. Surely everyone in Queensland's excited about this. I couldn't believe that they were even contemplating not having a new stadium for the Olympics. It means we'll say goodbye to the Gabba, though.
Well, I've had my head in finance all day. I didn't even know that, Paps. So there you go. So a new stadium, they might even name it Rockliff Stadium or something like that. But,
yes.
So here we go. I don't think that'll quite get over the line, but it's overdue. A stadium, the Gabba's just too hard. There's so much traffic around it. They'll be Queensland government. I mean, you don't want to get me started on governments. We'll be here all day if you get me started on that. But they've just built a massive train line that has a stop right at the Gabba, and now they're not going to play footy there. So they've decided to put a stadium somewhere else. It is needed, so it is a great thing for the city, and I'm sure we'll adjust to it down the track. But the 60,000-seat stadium, it's well overdue. The Gabba's past its use-by date, so that's a good option from the Queensland government.
Mate, the Gabba was past its use-by date in 2012. Like one of the worst visiting change rooms in Australia.
I didn't realise that until obviously I went to Port Adelaide, because you're on the other side, you're in the home changes. Went and played an away game, and I was like, oh my goodness, what are we doing?
The taping room's
That's
like
so
a
weird.
bathroom, and like blokes are just in there like sitting on toilets getting their ankles strapped, basically. It's a disgrace.
And the worst thing was, we gave you rooms like that and you'd still come out and pump us.
Brilliant stuff, Tommy. Always great to chat to you, mate. Hope you survive whatever weather you've got coming up there over the next couple of days. Chat soon.
Good on you guys.
Tom Rockliff there, of course, from
Rockliff Finance Stadium.
The Rock.
Yeah, Rockliff.
That'll be
the Rock.
The Rock.
That's good.
Stadium. I reckon that'd go all right.
Yes, he's a smart man, Tommy. He's already
onto
the
it.
naming rights.
Best Gabba memory for you?
Oh, I've got some shocking memories at the Gabba. Honestly. We've been played. They're not good. Like, we played COVID there. I was knocked out. I had my cheekbone fractured by Luke Power out in the middle.
I did say favourite Gabba memory.
Like the worst change rooms in the world. We got pumped. We got done by a torp out of the centre with 3 seconds left.
Oh, who kicked that?
Polkinghorne.
That's it.
That was my man. So the flight home from the Gabba with Phil Walsh, man, I'll never forget it. Like,
he kicked that about 70, I reckon.
Oh yeah, straight over my head, mate. Yeah, straight over. I was in physio for weeks after that, craning my neck, watching that saw through. But Phil Walsh, rest in peace, Phil. I'll never forget that. He just tore shreds off me. Not yelling, we're on a plane, but just tore shreds off me. I basically just trailed him in. It was late in the game, and I was thinking, I'll help save the day here. He went up to the stoppage, wheeled around, handballed, torped it over. I was still standing there, and I never forgot it. And it never happened again. I don't reckon in my whole career I ever let a player do that. And it was because of that moment. So we talk about some of these teaching moments and stuff, and this is where it gets a bit more serious. Like, I was personally held accountable for that loss, and I never let it happen again. That's why sometimes this soft approach, we don't want to speak to Harley too harshly. Just tell them, like they'll figure it out. But yeah, lots of good Gabba memories.
I was at the ground that day. I was right behind that kick.
Were you calling it?
I was calling it. Yeah. And it just
bulking horn. Is that how it went?
Yeah, pretty much. It was perfect. I was like, "Where's Schofield?" And it just went straight off the boot.
I'm gonna look that up.
Flew through as well. Some great news there out of Queensland, and good to recap Scoey's favourite memories at the Gabba here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, and we look to the West. Very happy place for footy right now as we head to Derby number 60. Both teams without a win. Freo a heartbreaker on the weekend. West Coast were much better against Brisbane in the heat over there, but Eliza Reilly joins us from Code Sports as she does each and every week here on the Footy Interchange. Eliza, great to chat to you. Feels a little bit different though, heading into a Derby with both teams winless.
Wow, oh my God, I think this is the first time in history that this has happened, and it's also the first time since 2001 that both of our teams have been smack bang bottom of the ladder. So it's not going to be the most consequential derby of all time, but there's still plenty on the line for both teams.
Justin Longmuir, probably top of the table there in terms of bottom of the table is side, but pressure. I just feels like if this isn't a win, this is going to be a furnace over here in the West.
Oh, absolutely, Scully. The pressure is mounting. But I think if we look at the start to the season holistically, I think the Dockers are only probably 4 premiership points shy of where we thought they'd be. I think most people thought they would go down to Geelong and bounce back against the Swans, which they obviously did for 3/4 and 20 minutes and then let it slip very, very late in the piece. So it was a shocking loss. I don't think we can deny that, but it feels like the Dockers and Justin Longmuir, especially given the noise around his contract, need a win more than probably ever in his 6 years at the helm.
Yeah, into a high-pressure game in a derby where sometimes we do get those really surprising results. Eliza, on the West Coast side of things, they were much better. We spoke about it off the top of the show today, though, but Harley Reid still getting all the headlines as well.
Yeah, I know it's been done to death this week, so I have a simple proposal for everyone. Let's all shut the F up until after the Derby this weekend, because we know Harley Reid is a big game player. We know in the first Derby last year he came out and absolutely dominated Fremantle and could have, should have, would have probably won the Glendenning Allen medal for his performance. So I think we park the Harley Reid talk for now and resurface it after the Derby, because if he can make a statement, that's the perfect way for his season to turn around, and that's what I'm expecting from him.
I like it, Eliza. Very, very good. Do you think that new coach Minnie McQualter, coming into a derby, I know that he spoke to the players in Brisbane about the derby. He spoke to Liam Duggan yesterday. He said there was a bit of a mention about it, refocusing for this one. Do you think he understands it, being new in town? And does he have any pressure on him?
He probably doesn't quite yet, but he will as of Sunday. It is obviously the biggest fixture in WA. It's the biggest game on the calendar, and with both teams having that chance to notch their first win of the year, it is a high-pressure game, and it's not just every other game like the players like to tell us. We know you guys talk behind the scenes. We know it's more than just another game. So I'm very excited to see how the Eagles go. I think they've got a free swing almost, knowing that the Dockers are under so much pressure and they were so improved against the Brisbane Lions. It's just going to be a matter of how they've recovered from that heat and humidity on the weekend and the longest trip in football, obviously.
We're pretty far removed from the messaging from both of these clubs at the season launch, though. We're only 4 weeks away from them. It was premierships at Freo, and West Coast basically didn't speak about winning or losing. Like it was very different messaging. Can we make any assumptions like this far into the season on if they were right or wrong, or should they have done that?
I'm going to give you guys a quick lesson in sports psychology. So there was a group of golfers and they asked half of them to aim for a hole-in-one and they asked the other half of them to aim for 5 meters within the hole. Now, the group who actually had the better accuracy was the group of golfers who were told to aim for nearest to the pin. And that's a bit reflective to me of where West Coast and Fremantle are at the moment. The Dockers are talking flags, flag mantle. Every opportunity they had during the preseason, they were talking about their bold ambition, which is their prerogative. They want to aim for the stars and see what happens. Whereas one of the things you obviously mentioned that stood out about McQualter's season launch address was that he said the good teams I've been a part of, obviously being Richmond, don't actually speak about winning. We just speak about the process and the memories. So I don't know, could sports psychology be predicting the result of Sunday? We'll wait and see which mental sort of approach and mindset is going to be the ultimate.
Brilliant stuff, Eliza. It just takes the show up a level, to be honest. Every time we chat to you, Eliza. Thanks very much. We'll let you get down there to Freo and pose all the questions to them ahead of Derby 60. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Eliza, Reilly there. A couple of things to unpack out of that, Scully. Derby, as we know, the old cliche, doesn't mean anything more. Players talk it down, but you used to get fired up for a derby.
Look, it doesn't mean anything more. Like, that is true. It's 4-point game and you're on your home deck. Like, it really doesn't mean anything more. But it's played differently. It is a step up from normal round. It is not finals, but it's close to it because, for whatever reason, like, there's just... Yeah, you could say there's more on the line. Maybe mentally, not, actually. But you definitely go into a derby differently as a player. Absolutely.
Who do you have your biggest battles with? Or who seemed to take it more seriously in the derby, you reckon?
I know Pav used to love playing well. Like, he's just one of the all-time great players and really fortunate to work with him on Fox Footy now. I used to love matching up on him. I'm sure you used to love kicking goals on me. Hayden Ballantyne, like a good mate of mine through my Peel days. Then playing against him. It was funny with Ballas, like, because I'd played a lot of footy with him. I knew what he was like. He's a ripping bloke, and all the bravado out in the field it's not real. But if you don't know that, you can get really caught up with it. So he never used to try it on me because he knew, one, I was that guy too. He used to pick on guys he used to get under the skin of.
Matthew Scarlett.
Yeah. And I used to just look at him and like, piss off, you little mosquito, like, get out of here. And so he'd buzz off to somewhere else, right? But I used to play on him as well. So both ranges, the small, quick, nippy types and the big guys too. Had some good battles on Ballas. And favourite moment, probably him. Hitting the post to win the
game. and West Coast win it instead. The derbies are always interesting. Unfortunately, we haven't really had it in the West lately where both teams have been going well at the same time to really pump it up. Before we move on from that, though, Freo, your thoughts? Obviously, trying to push up the table, trying to win a flag. They've made their intentions known this year. I'm still confident in them that they can find their best footy and still have an impact this season. You look at their draw, they could very easily, if they get through this weekend, and I said that last weekend as well, but they can be 4-2 in a month's time.
Yeah, I expect them to be better than they've shown. It was my fear coming into it, and what I said off the top of the show, they need to find a more attacking gear. From the footy I saw, and I watched it live, I wasn't working, which I don't get to do too often. They still look restricted. Now, was that Sydney or was that Freo? I just think they either need more license or a little bit more bravado in the attacking sense. Now, like when Shea Bolton gets the ball, I know he didn't play his best game of the weekend, but when he gets the ball, he's nipping around, something's going to happen. There's not enough guys that when they get the footy look like they want to take it on. I think they're playing too safe, and that could be uneducated, but I think to break the shackles a bit, they've got to let the shackles off. Like, they've just got to go, hey, boys, just go and play. You know how to do it.
And how much mentally is it becoming a factor now where we saw to the end of last year they dropped the last 4. There was a number of games where they were ahead at three-quarter time and lost in a close one. It's happened again now in round 2 in a game they should have won because they were in a winning position to do that. Being able to just get over the line and fight it out. How does a team try to get through that?
It's a big issue because it's player-driven. It's nothing to do with coaching or game plan or system or your list, all this stuff that people like to talk about. It's about player in the moment changing the course of the game for your team. And if you can't stand up and take a clean ground ball, kick the ball where it needs to be, not hit a target, but if you're trying to kick it long inside your forward line, you can't have it slicing off going through the middle of the ground. You just can't do it. If you're a defender and you're in a one-on-one contest, you need to halve that ball. Like, there's no discussion about it. You have to do it. And if you don't, you lose. Like that's the line you live on. Like that's what playing elite sport is. And too often Fremantle haven't stood up. And it's not one game, it's not two. You know, it's happened 5 times in the last 7. Exactly that. So that's a big issue. It's probably their biggest issue.
Yeah, and that's where they go from being a middle-of-the-range team to then to try to be, good to great. It's a big question on Fremantle right now. You're on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, let's head to New South Wales where footy, I think, is going pretty well over there, especially now the Swans have broken through. We chat, of course, to Callum Sinclair, who we dub Scully as the smartest backup ruckman in history.
Got a bit of a head wobble going on, Sinker. How are you going over there east, mate?
Well, we're crossing to him. For those that are watching on YouTube, I'm not sure if we're going into a call centre here or not, but Cal Sinclair is with us. Hello, Cal.
Good afternoon, guys. I mean, I've had a few gags already earlier. I've been called an airplane pilot. We're in a call centre, but hey, you've got to make ends meet somehow, guys. We can't be sitting in West Australia, talking about the Woodham Spooners full time. So, anyway, but no, you are right. New South Wales footy, it's going well. I think the monkey's off the back for Dean Cox, who probably started with a couple of, I guess, shaky performances earlier, particularly at home. But it was an interesting performance. Wasn't the most, I guess, spectacular game to watch, but Freo and the Swans were very desperate, and I think for Dean, he probably would show a sigh of relief that he's got the 4 points.
Yeah, the Swans in particular. So you're a former ruck, Cal, or once a ruck, always a ruck. Dean Cox is a ruckman. As a coach, did you, as him as Sydney coach, do you encourage him selecting almost a whole team of ruckmen on the weekend for Sydney to get the win? They went very tall. They had so many of them.
Yeah. Well, mate, he actually probably had 3 on the weekend. Hayden McLean returned to the side, who can obviously punch out 4 quarters in the ruck. Interesting decision to bring in Peter Laddams and Brodie Grundy. So I'm not too sure what happened there. There was talk that there might be a change late. I'm very biased. I just reckon play us all. You know what I mean? So. But essentially, that could have been something that could have affected them. Obviously, Grundy got taken out of the game. So, it's probably not the smartest call to play too many talls, particularly at Optus Stadium.
Fair emotions down in the room. You mentioned Dean Cox getting the monkey off his back. Chad Warner was, from what I could see, very Sydney orientated. He's pulling the jumper, jumping all over Coxie. How did you read it?
Well, I think Chad's a very strategic guy. I'm still believing that he is going to head out to Western Australia at the end of the season. But when you do things like grab the jumper, you're kicking goals, it's going to increase his share price if he keeps going well. But I did overhear that apparently there was some stick from the Freo fans that they might see him next year. But Chad is an interesting one. I think anyway, I'll keep my opinion to myself and I'll just go. I think where I reckon he's going.
Yeah, maybe to the other club over this way. We'll wait and see.
To West Coast.
An eye on it, yes. James Jordan, how good is he playing this season? The human clamp just did another job on the weekend and really kept Caleb Sarong quiet.
Yeah, he reminds me of a little bit of Cameron Ling when he was at his peak. He'd go to probably the opposition's best player, but his ability to accumulate while playing that role, it's pretty hard to find. I don't think there'd be many players out there that are getting the numbers that he's getting whilst also shutting down the opposition's best midfielder. So, mate, full credit to him. I'd probably argue to say that he was probably close to best on ground for the Swans, not only from a statistical point of view, but also for the role that he plays within the side. I think with the fact with Errol Gordon out, I think if James Jordan, he's definitely stepping up to the plate to obviously mitigate the influence of the Oppo's best mid. So it'll probably be a sleepless night before every single game, worrying about who he's going up against. But full credit to him. He's doing a great job.
Top of the table clash, my two sides. That's right. The Giants v the Hawks. This is going to be a ripping game. It's in Tasmania.
Well, that's what, mate. It's going to be the biggest blockbuster Tasmanians ever seen. So I'm actually pumped, and I'm going to actually eat my words. I did say that the Swans and the Giants play the best brands of football in the AFL. From now, I'm going to change my tune. It is the Giants and the Hawks that are playing the best brand. It's going to be an exciting game. Fingers crossed the weather's going to hold up for them. But I think the most pleasing thing for the Giants is that there are rumours that they could be bringing Jake Stringer back into the team to appear for the first time in the orange. So he'll be an amazing X factor for them. I don't know. The decision is, do they kind of bring him back through the twos? He has had some soft tissue issues in the past. Do they just kind of tick off a half for a bit of comfort? or do they just bring him straight back in?
Brilliant stuff, Cal. Great to chat to you, mate. Thank you very much.
No worries, guys. Thought you were good today.
Yeah, just
You
sort
too,
that head of
very
yours
good.
out. Just put it into place for me, mate. Put a neck brace on or something.
Tell you what, though, mate, they've got to sort the WA footy out. Jesus Christ.
Just rubbing it in for another loss.
So good,
over
mate.
here.
I'm a fan. See you guys. Bye.
See you, mate. Cal Sinclair there, live from the call centre there with the headset on.
He's very good, Cal.
Very good. Very, very good. That Hawks-Giants game going to be a great Saturday night of footy. Unfortunately, in some ways, because they've rescheduled the Brisbane-Geelong game, they're up against each other now on Saturday night. So you have to try and take your pick out of which one you're going to be
I don't know
watching.
what you're going to pick.
Yeah, I think Hawthorn Giants.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant who was going to pick Giants Hawthorn.
Well, that's
They're
tough
my
to
two
pick
sides
as well.
You know that, right?
Yeah, how many sides have you got now?
Two.
Two.
And the Dockers when they're good.
Yep, and West Coast?
And West Coast when they're
yeah,
good.
because you play with them.
But neither
Anyone
neither
else?
good.
You want to throw in there?
Geelong, so I used to go for Geelong.
Yeah, okay.
And I like Brisbane and Port because Tom Rockliff used to play for them.
So Scully's got half the teams in the AFL that he's supporting right now. We're here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, we head to South Australia where certainly the Power are feeling a little bit better about things this week and the Crows are absolutely flying. Sim Thomas-Wilson from the Adelaide Advertiser and from Code Sports is our man on the ground over there after his little back and forth with Ken Hinkley last week.
Mate, he had Brad Scott in the gun as well.
Yeah, he's just going after all the coaches at the moment. Sim, great to chat to you, mate.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Good to chat to you. Now, you're asking the right questions, the ones that need to be asked there as well. But the big question we've got for you is, are the Crows the real deal? They looked unbelievable on the weekend.
Yeah, it's been an incredible start for them. And I guess there are a lot of people are saying they're the real deal. If you're going to try and argue against it, they did play St Kilda and Essendon, who played terrible games that day, even though St Kilda went and beat Geelong, but they have looked really impressive so far. When they needed to come out and have a pretty red hot start to the season, and they have. They've been super impressive. The only thing that really maybe a little red flag for them is conceding 100 points to Essendon, given the inexperience of Essendon's forward line. But it's been a really good start for the Crows. And the next two games actually might tell us if they are the real deal because they've won the games they need to win. North Melbourne, they're actually looking pretty good now, and then Gold Coast. And in Gold Coast, actually could be quite an interesting game now.
Matt Crouch, is he back in the good books? Because I felt like for a while there they weren't playing him and didn't know where to put him. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. He's an inside bull and just racks up touches. And surrounded by the right midfield, that's a good guy to have in the side.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible story, actually. Like, they've got a lot of more sexy names in there, like your Rankins, your Dawsons, even Jake Saligo, who's emerging as a bit of a star now. But Matt Prowse, his story, his redemption story, like he was almost out of the club at the end of 2021, couldn't find actually a team to take him on. That's why he stayed for another 2 years. Then he was out of favour with Matthew Nix for pretty much those 2 years, came back in the second half of 2023, played about 6 games in a row, and it went from the Crows not even ringing him about a new contract to signing him to 2-year deal. And now he's one of the more important players in the Crows team. He just gets first hands on the footy, gives it to Rankin, Dawson, or Saligo, or anybody running past, and the Crows are all of a sudden quite damaging now through that midfield.
Yeah, if you can get your hands on the footy, that's half the battle, isn't it? And
he's a gun.
You can go
he's never changed. He's the exact same player. I think they must have just
a little bit disposal by foot, perhaps. But
that's for it. He's never been able to kick, but that's fine. He's a ball getter, and clearly they've had a bit of a rejig of how they thought about using him. And exactly as Sim says, like use him as a distributor, like Matt Priddis.
Yeah,
he's someone I think of.
Exactly the person I thought.
Mate, like Priddis, you'd ask Priddis, hated kicking the footy, basically. If he could just handball all day long, we'll do it. And they can get the ball. They're hard inside. I think it's great.
Yeah, he's having a really good impact for the Crows. We switch across him to Port Adelaide. Last week we were questioning, is this going to work? They come out, they have a really good win. Unfortunately, though, some injury news out of that with Jack Lukosius, one of their recruits, coming in with a really nasty one.
Yeah, the big name recruit, probably about a minute 30 into his home debut for the Power. Kind of hit his knee against Jaden Short's hip and then looked in pain, tried to come back on and then just pulled up again. And, he was walking on it after the game, but the next day it swelled up really massively. And yeah, he's fractured his kneecap. So he had surgery yesterday. He's out for maybe around three or so months, maybe even 4 months. And that's a big blow for the Power. Like, it isn't the worst case scenario for them in terms of losing a player. I reckon that's a Lear, but like it's pretty close given, he's not only the big name recruit, but he was going to be a big part of this new forward line, which we spoke about. We haven't really seen how he was going to play yet. Yeah, now he's out for three or 4 months, and they have to further reshuffle their forward line.
Yeah, massive game for the Power up against Essendon on Thursday night, Sim. Thanks for the update, mate. Great to chat.
Thanks, guys.
Sim Thomas Wilson there from the Adelaide Advertiser and from Code Sports as well. I'm not going to really lean on my footy career here, Scully, but I did fracture my kneecap playing junior footy. It was not pleasant, and I never played again. That was it. I was done.
Well, I mean,
under 14s.
But
that's because I'm soft.
I feel like fracturing your kneecap doesn't sound like a good injury to have.
It was not fun.
So it's career ending for you.
It was, yes.
I hope that's not the case.
Not that there was going to be a career at any time at all.
We don't know.
No, there definitely was not going to be. Way too soft for that. Not courageous at all. And as soon as I broke my knee, I was like, nah, I'm done. That's it. I'm going to watch it instead.
Smart.
Yeah, exactly. Great to chat to Sim there. You're on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, Adam Papalia, Will Schofield, and a new segment, Scully, that we're bringing in here. A bit of an injury update across the league, and it's great to have. I know he's been doing a little bit of stuff on BackChat, but we've just drafted him into this program. Steve Gravina, of course, from Front Runner Physio, former physio at West Coast, who joins us now just to give us a bit of an insight into some of the injuries that are going on around the league and the time frames, because a lot of the times, I reckon, Scully,
we don't know what we're talking about.
Well, we don't know what we're talking about, but I reckon clubs don't tell us accurately what is going on. And I know it's a bugbear of yours in terms of the actual return to play timeframes and that sort of thing. So we welcome in Steve. Great to see you, mate, from Front Runner Physio, of course, just to actually find out what is going on around the league. Do you find that as well? Like, do you hear sometimes clubs will say, oh, yeah, they're going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks. You're like, nah, there is no chance he's back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, you do. They put out the party line, I think, just to try and play it down at times. But, having a bit of experience in that industry, you can read between the lines at times.
So, mate, a big injury we spoke about off the top in this show was Jack Lukosius at Port Adelaide with Sim, Paps. Fractured kneecap. To the sound, that doesn't sound very good.
No, it's pretty rare in footy, but it can happen in a collision-based sport. So it obviously requires trauma. So usually it's a direct blow to the kneecap, so knee on knee or shin on knee typically. If it's bad enough to crack that bone, more than often you end up having surgery. So you need a little pin to stabilise the 2 pieces or multiple pieces of bone. And as with most fracture healing time frames, it's 6 weeks to allow that bone to heal before you can actually get going. Once you've had a pin put in it, though, you can tend to be a bit more aggressive at times. So you might be up and running a bit earlier. But I'd imagine, 4 weeks to get him back up and running and then another 4 at best. So 8 weeks minimum, but possibly up to 3 months. You probably follow Cody Waitman, who had a bit of an interesting one, which was similar in pre-season, where he got a knock to his knee. And they scanned it and actually showed that he had what's called a bipartite patella, which is a bit of a unique situation where some people are just born with 2 pieces of bone, which has a little bit of cartilage between, as opposed to 1 full kneecap. So it didn't really fuse when he was young. Unfortunately, that caused it to crack. They tried to manage it conservatively. Didn't help, as he still had pain ongoing. So they ended up putting a pin on it. So he'll be returning sooner than Jack. You could sort of follow him along the way.
Not nice at all. I can say from personal experience, having done that before, not very fun. We spoke earlier in the show as well to Tom Rockliff up there in Queensland. How do clubs go about managing the different conditions that they're going to face? Because the heat, the humidity that West Coast and Brisbane played in on the weekend was something I don't think we've seen to that level for quite some time. So the recovery process and how you get through that in a game?
Yeah, it's really challenging, especially to go from an environment where you're not used to the humidity. So that's usually the biggest one. The heat's one, but, Perth being a hot climate over summer, West Coast would have been used to training in that drier heat. Going over there, the hydration piece is the big thing that impacts you with humidity. So it's a hard thing to prepare for. You can obviously do what you can from a pre-game hydration perspective and stay as fresh as possible. But then electrolyte replacements during the game, trying to cool yourself down as well with the fans and the ice vests in game as well. And I'm sure they would have pulled the pickle juice out a fair bit in the game to try to mitigate the cramp. But yeah, as you saw, you can't stop them all.
Cramping doesn't target tall blokes more than smaller blokes, does it? Because, I mean, both the West Coast ruckmen went down. It's not kind of height-based, is it?
No, it's not, but it's usually, the bigger guys fatigue quicker. If they're expected to cover that amount of ground as a roaming ruckman. So they're generally the guys that aren't used to, the bigger miles. And if they're required to do that in the heat, they'll go down quickest.
Just a little update on a man who's going to be at our live Derby show, Paps. I forgot to squeeze this in on the top, segue. So I thought I might just squeeze it in here at the Leadable Hotel. If you want Derby tickets, I've got some to give away, but you've got to be at the show, Paps. You like that? I thought you might. Sean Darcy will be there. Liam Duggan will be there. So we've got a star-studded field to be there at the Leadable Hotel this Thursday. Sean Darcy spoke on the show on Monday, Steve, that his knee, feeling really good, spent some time in Qatar, obviously at the almost started the season for a week there. I think the guys he's seeing over there. But somewhere in that process, a screw has become infected in his ankle, a completely unrelated injury. And I've seen photos of it. It doesn't look great. I'm not sure how long ago the photo was, but an infected screw bone issue. I mean, is that bad?
It's not great. It's not great, especially if it's still affecting him now. It's been almost a month since he's got back from there.
Yeah.
If the infection gets to the bone level, then it's typically going to start to infect more than just the local tissue. So the whole system around the ankle and then above can start to get infected. So usually it needs, full body antibiotics, either via tablets or at worst IV, so intravenous with a needle and a PICC line. Where basically you need to have that full time on you. And if it's got to that point, then, the time it's going to take to get him back to just general health will be a few weeks. And then, then building up again from there. But he's going to lose a lot of conditioning and all the work that he did over pre-season, it's fading away, unfortunately. So he's going to need another mini build once he's healthy again. But, health is number one priority for him right now because, infections are they're not things you want to take lightly.
No, certainly not at all. That sounds like a really serious one. Steve, great to chat to you, mate. Giving us a bit of an update. We'll chat again next week.
Thanks very much, guys.
Brilliant. Steve Gravina there with an injury update. Concerning, though, for Sean Darcy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, mate.
Given the amount of work, I mean, I saw him running around before his latest trip to Qatar, and he looked super fit. He'd done a lot of work over the pre-season. It's a pretty big setback.
Yeah, it is, and frustrating because, an infection or something like that isn't, it's not a knock. It's not a hammy tear. These sorts of things that they're not controllable either, but you kind of expect them. You don't expect to rock up and your ankle to be infected and you be, your skin or your bone or whatever else becoming infected. And yeah, it's massive because it affects their whole team. Because Jackson comes up in the ruck, which they don't want to do. We know that they want to play a ruck. That's why they did it round one. And then so he comes up, it disrupts your forward line. They play Pat Voss instead, who I thought was good at stages, but obviously some big errors as well.
But then they put Tracy in the ruck at the end. And
Tracy.
And then they couldn't kick a goal at the end.
Disrupts. Yeah. Like it's one injury changes your whole structure of your side. That's why it's really important to Freo. And I just, on a personal level, he's been highly critiqued, Sean Darcy, his fitness and his preparation. From what I can see and what I've heard, highly prepared, works his absolute butt off, and to have something like this, it would just be so frustrating personally. So we hope, we wish the best for him, don't we?
Yeah, certainly. He's been super unlucky in recent times. You're on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, Scully, we're getting towards the end of the pod. Been so many issues to get through today, but I really want to make this show an option and available to people to ask questions as well.
Yep.
Bit of criticism we've got already on these shows that we don't talk wide enough about other issues, so we want people to bring them to us.
Who's criticising?
Well, there's a few people last week. It's good. Take a bit of constructive. We can take some hard feedback here on the program. So if people want to get involved, just drop us a comment on social media at either of our handles or leave one in the comment section on YouTube as well, and we'll try and address it for next week. But we want you to be a really big part of the show. We'll kick it off. Mitchell Dawson at Dark Magician on Twitter says, all right, Pappy. Not sure about that. All right, Pappy. Do we think that West Coast has actually started a rebuild?
Well, Pappy.
I shouldn't have said that.
It's very good. Do we think that Well, yes. You'd have to think so.
Do they believe it?
Well, the thing is, they haven't gone purely through the draft. You can rebuild without going solely to the draft. So they go and get Baker and Graham and Owies, even though Owies was for free. Baker and Graham weren't. So they're mixing their way. They're doing it. They're going to get another high draft pick now. They have another first, Carltons, not Hawthorns. Which I thought was bizarre at the time, obviously because I'm high on Hawthorn. So they've started it, but hasn't been going for long. Jinby draft is the first one where I think they were like, oh, gee, our list isn't very good, which is surprising.
Yeah. So the rebuild, it's slow.
It started. It's not very far into it.
It's a slow rebuild as it's taken. Tom 987 on X says, what would West Coast's best way of dealing with the Harley chat every week be like? If he plays well, they talk about it. If he plays shit, they talk about it. They can't win. Can the club protest against certain media or just not do press conferences and cop an AFL fine?
Well, the club can do as they like. There's certain requirements under the CBA and the new broadcast deal that, some things they can't do what they like. My view on this is, and I think it's a pretty clear mandate here by West Coast. They're staying out of it. They're letting the narrative run because we haven't seen many come out. I just saw Elliot Yeo a quote just as we came on air. He went out pretty hard, which I like. I would like to see more Elliot Yeo saying, he's our guy. We're protecting him. Piss off, basically.
Yep.
We haven't seen that. And that means that that's planned. Like things don't happen by chance in the AFL. Injury lists, different messaging. You hear it all the time. So they're clearly making a thing of not bringing it up and they're hoping it's going to go away. I think that's wrong. I think they need to come out harshly about it.
No, I don't think you can stop the chat by not doing media and not doing press conferences, that sort of thing. I think they can pull the trigger on not giving access to certain outlets or not giving the same sort of interviews. But in terms of the general press conferences, that will continue.
The attitude of, we haven't seen Harley for anything, right?
Yeah.
I don't like that attitude of, he's under the pump, we're not putting him up. Put him up. Put him in a protected environment. If you want to put him up to your own channels and do a one-on-one with him.
Yep.
I really don't like that. Let's put our heads in the sand and let's not talk about it and let's just shield him away from everything. He knows what's going on. The club knows what's going on. So find a way to drive the narrative would be my thinking.
He knows what's going on. He changed his Instagram yesterday.
Yeah, it was
for
brilliant.
A couple of minutes.
And we love it.
It's very funny.
Lean into it. Was there anyone sitting around going, oh my God, they've put Ben Cousins up doing it? Hey, people love it. Lean into it. Go Harley.
Michael Miller says, how long do teams and individuals spend practicing goal kicking from set shots per week?
So much. Me, not much. But I just think of forwards that I played with. Josh Kennedy, Jack Darling, Jake Waterman, Oscar Allen.
The whole thing's always been, the sports scientists won't let them kick too many. Is that real or not?
That's never been real.
No.
But
we still see, I guess this is alluding to, we see players missing relatively straightforward set shots directly in front of goal.
Yeah. It's not like it's been amazing and now it's not. This is a bit like this sort of, I think back in the day there's more goals kicked. Yeah, it was because there was no defence, not because they were better kicks at goal. And
why isn't it better though?
I don't know. I mean, why isn't air travel? Why hasn't that improved in 30 years? It still takes you 20 hours to fly to Europe, doesn't it?
True, but I don't know. It's a skill,
yeah,
and it seems to have such a wide variation on it for something that is so crucial to the game. Do clubs spend too much time on trying to figure out how to get it into the 50 as opposed to actually converting it?
I think it's mental. It's a mindset thing, and that's why it has its inconsistency. Some of all-time goal kickers have bad years because it's mental. It's the technique changes, skill is acquired, but in the end, there's other pressures like scoreboard, like time of game, how tired you are.
Yep.
It's not a closed skill. Like there's a lot of other things going around. But also, kick it through the big sticks, not that hard.
We see Sam Draper giving it to his own fans after he kicks it around the corner from 15 metres out. And last one, this one is from the Brady Hoff Appreciation Club.
Nice.
Hello, will Brady Hoff get an All-Australian jacket in his career?
Yeah, I think so. Keeps doing what he's doing. I heard him talking about his offensive side of the game. I really hate that. I hate seeing a player doing something really well and then, you never stop working. Of course. But keep doing what you do well. Like, focus on shutting players out of games. It's a brilliant role to play, so important to your side. I don't want him to become this running half-back flanker. If that's not his one wood, it might be. We've seen him run and dash a bit, but just play your role.
Yeah, he's certainly come on in the last couple of years. Seems to just keep getting better. Scully,
Yes.
Been a very good pod today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll be working together Friday night, calling Carlton and the Bulldogs for 6PR if people want to sync up with a telly and give us a listen. We'll be having a fair bit of fun.
So if you need a bit of a plan for the weekend, I personally would go Thursday night at Leadville Hotel, right? So you go Thursday night at Leadville Hotel.
Yep.
So you get your tickets to that, backchatstudios.com.au. for your chance to win tickets to the Derby on Sunday. So you come Thursday, you win the tickets.
Yep.
On the way home from the Leedy,
Yes.
you chuck 6PR on
Correct.
to catch Thursday night footy.
Yes.
Right? And then you go to work, just all that bullshit. Then you go Friday night, listen to 6PR.
Yep. We've got a case of shelter to give away, interactive quiz
Correct.
as well.
Saturday, get ready for the Derby.
Yep.
While listening to 6PR.
Yep.
And then and then Sunday, you're at the Derby with the tickets you won from Thursday. Live show at the Leadville Hotel with Liam Duggan and Sean Darcy.
And heckling Scully down there at ground level as well.
On the boundary for Fox Footy.
On the boundary for Fox Footy. I'll be up in the commentary box and looking forward to it. Thanks for your company. This has been the Footy Interchange.